This is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. Glad you're with us tonight. We have a lot to discuss. Today, another remarkable day in a series of remarkable days. But today, it was the state of Metro. Mayor John Cooper spoke about the state of our city and our government. And he was today going to deliver the budget, but he did not do that. He instead talked about the impact of the tornado, of the coronavirus, and where we stand. And it was a remarkable speech. And the bottom line is we face some real challenges in this city. We're going to talk about that tonight. We want to give you an opportunity to call in with questions or comments, but very happy to have with us Pat Nolan, our political analyst, the host of Inside Politics. Pat, thank you for being with us.
Hi, Ben. Glad to be here.
And of course, we're social distancing, so we're we're in the same room, but we're separated.
I'm over here and you're over there,
which is what we need to do. Pat, you watched the speech today. A remarkable speech given in front of just 8 people. I mean, we've seen this over the years. It's been given in front of many people, but because of the coronavirus, it just kind of added to the sort of ominous tone. But the headline for you out of this speech, I would think, is the property tax, right?
Well, that's right. You know, Ben, in our business, we just said the mayor buried the headline, but because it was into the speech a while before he said that he was going to be recommending sometime by the end of April a significant increase in the property tax rate in Davidson County. He spent the first part of the speech, and I think did so rightly, to sort of remind people that we've been facing a triple whammy in Davidson County. We've had a problem before with budgetary issues going right. We started out the fiscal year last summer with a $40 million deficit, which he had just gotten over the top on and figured out how to handle. And then the tornado hit, and then here comes the virus. So he wanted to try to walk people through that before he started telling them not only are things bad, but they're going to get worse in terms of how they're going to deal with it in Metro. He didn't say how much he's going to ask the property tax to go up, but when you hear somebody like the mayor say it's going to be a substantial increase, that should make you think it's going to be pretty big.
You really never hear that. The mayor sitting there saying, as a result of this, this, and this, we will be asking for a sharp increase, a substantial increase in the property tax. He didn't give an amount. We'll know the amount, as you said, a little bit later, probably April 28th. Some of the numbers that he put out there, because of the coronavirus and shutting everything down, we are losing $200 to $300 million in sales tax revenue between now and the end of the fiscal year in June 30th.
And that's an astounding number to lose in one. And we start the new quarter tomorrow, so in one quarter, 3 months, we could lose $200 to $300 million. I'm not sure I know how that's going to be made up. The mayor's talked about the fact they have a hiring freeze, a travel freeze, doing everything they can to find every nickel and dime, and looking under the sofa cushions to try to find everything they could to kind of balance this. But that's going to be tough, and that doesn't even begin to talk about what they may have for next year, because we haven't seen the full impact of what this has done to the economy and how long it's going to last. And so whatever they do to do that is going to be difficult to see how they do it for now and what kind of numbers they come up with for going forward. And of course, if things weren't already worse, the mayor may have known this when he made the speech, but the CMA Fest has now been canceled. That was one of the most significant tourism events in Nashville, and I think was bringing in $65 million or in spending, not in terms of taxes, but in terms of overall spending. So that's another blow to the economy, and particularly the taxes. The mayor did report that the Convention Center Commission was going to donate another $35 million to help the city balance its budget. $35 million is not going to cover all of the $200 to $300 million they're going to be short, but it will help. I would also point out that I suspect the money they're getting from the Convention Center is one-time money, and the mayor, of course, doesn't like to use one-time money, very much ran against that idea last year, but when you're up the creek, you may need to get whatever paddle comes by your way to use, and so he seems to be ready to do that. And again, we'll see elsewhere else he can find money, but he's got a lot of work to do.
Bottom line, if we don't know how much the increase will be, but if you were to kind of give a guess, if you were to use the clues that were given us today with these huge numbers he's talking about, what sort of property tax increase do you think we might be looking at?
Well, our current rate in Davidson County for property taxes is $3.15. That's the lowest it's ever been in the history of Metro. Our lowest one before that had been back in 1968 when it was $5.30. So we're substantially below that. The mayor also kind of indicated that whatever increase it would be below what all the other major cities in the state are. And the closest one to us from where we are right now is Knox County, Knoxville. The combined rate, if you live in the city and pay both the city and county taxes, that rate is 458. Again, our rate is 315. So I would maybe think something between those two might be where he'd be. I don't think he'd go as high as Shelby County. Their combined rate for Shelby County, Memphis is $7.77. It's the highest property tax rate in the state. So I don't think we'll go that far, but maybe something between 458 and 315, just as a pure guess. Now, there is one other caveat to look on that. Back in 2006, Metro voters, by a pretty substantial majority, as I remember, approved a property tax cap, that it could not, the property tax rate in the future could not go above what it was at that time, when it was $4.69. Again, remember now it's $3.15, and if it did go above that, it would have to be done with approval by a referendum. Now, that measure in the charter has never been challenged. There have been a lot of legal people who think that's not legal, but I don't think the mayor would go up anywhere close to that or go above it, because it's going to be hard enough to pass a tax increase with all the things going on right now. I don't think he wants to have a court case with it too. It
makes you wonder what this speech would have been like had we not had the tornado virus or the tornado or the coronavirus. It seemed like he was kind of set almost to have a triumphant speech. Maybe he would have announced this new money from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and he would have announced sort of putting money into some of the things that he ran on, teacher salaries and affordable housing and some of those things. Those are off the table now. Yeah, this was going to be his first State of Metro speech, so obviously this was his maiden voyage for that. And I think you're probably right. The feeling had been is he ran for mayor last year. He very much ran as a no tax increase kind of guy. He didn't actually completely rule it out, but he said we needed to have better financial stewardship. And he's been doing, had to do a lot of that when he came in, because he had to balance the budget, which was $40 million out of whack from the time the council approved it last summer, because it was going to try to use revenues that just never came up. And so therefore, these revenues were budgeted, but they were never going to be there. So they had to figure that out. And the state told him they needed to fix that. And he had done that. So I'm sure he's going to come in and take a little bit of another victory lap about that, because he pretty much had gotten that done. But I think he thought that was the way it was going to be, and then things sort of got out of hand with this. I mean, this month, if the month of March has been tough for all of us, but it's probably been the toughest month he's had. He's going to come on my show Friday, and I certainly want to talk to him about this, about how it's impacting the city, but also how it's impacting him. I'm sure he never dreamed getting in that he was going to have to face stuff like this. Yeah, what a month. And what did you think as you watched the speech? I mean, I talked about how kind of surreal it was. When it was over, there were just 8 people in there that clap. Usually you expect more, but there's just no one in there. There's no one in there to watch it. It's just this weird sort of feel. I was in with Vicki E.H. while we were doing the speech. Before we started, I warned Vicki that, because we had to stretch at the end of it to make sure that the show we were covering was going to be done on the main channel. I warned her that this speech might be shorter than usual, because there may have been applause lines written in the speech, but there was not going to be any applause coming out of the chamber, because there weren't more than 8 people there. In fact, there were some people that clapped right at the very end of it, but it almost sounded like that mock clap was just 1 or 2 people clapping. And I know they were saying good things about the mayor. I thought his speech was very good, and perhaps because he had the opportunity or had the need to talk about the terrible things that happened in the natural disaster with the tornado, that there was a lot more empathy in that speech than what I've heard from a lot of our leaders on all levels of government about this, who tend sometimes just to read all the ventilators and all this, that, and the others, and protective gear they're making, and they don't really make it too real. Now, although I must say, in watching this afternoon's White House briefing, the president, for the first time, I thought, did some outreaching to sort of indicate that this had a human level to it, not just who's doing this and who's not doing that, and what a good job we're doing. You've been in Metro for so long. Give us some perspective. Have you ever seen a time like this for Nashville? These are such unusual times. I haven't. I remember, and we and I were talking before we came on, in 1980 was a very tumultuous year. In May of 1980, we had a firefighter strike that lasted about a week, and it was pretty grim for a while. We had a lot of interesting fires. A lot of lumber yards were burned. A lot of other things going on. Firefighters having picket lines up around every fire station. The National Guard being called in by Mayor Fulton, and Governor Alexander sent them in. It was an interesting time. Following that, the mayor himself asked for a tax increase. The first one he had been asking since, even though he'd been mayor for a full term, and now is beginning his beginning his first budget after being reelected mayor for his second term.
He asked for a $2.87 increase on the rate. Now, we have to explain that it had been a long time since Metro had a tax increase, and frankly, the reappraisals were not up to date at that time. So you had to raise the rate quite a bit to get the kind of money you needed to be able, he thought, to run the government. Well, the council had a coronary about the rate being going up that much. They wound up with something that was about 89 cents before they finally approved it. And that obviously worked, although the mayor at one point I know contemplated vetoing that budget. Now, that was before I went to work in the mayor's office. That was when I was a reporter down here at Channel 5. But
you were a reporter. I love that. So in 1980, during this, you were a reporter.
It was the most tumultuous year I can remember until now. And maybe for different reasons, what we had a couple of years ago with the mayoral resignation and somebody else coming in, and then the transit vote and all those sorts of things. That was a kind of crazy year too, but nothing like this. In fact, the only thing I can think of in terms of Nashville in general like this, and again, this is totally different, was 1862, when Fort Donelson and Fort Henry, just north of here, defended by the Confederates, surrendered, and suddenly the Yankee troops were moving into Nashville. Nashville was declared an open city. The state government and the governor fled to Mississippi. And that was pretty much left the mayor of Nashville to negotiate with the Federals when they came in to make sure that the city wasn't going to be burned or looted or anything else. It was not. Nashville, for the next 4 years, pretty much was an occupied city. No American city has ever been occupied as long as Nashville was, from roughly the spring of 1862 until the war ended in 1865.
You know it's bad if we're talking about comparing things to the Civil War.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's bad news.
That's not a good, if you have to make that comparison, it's not a good one.
So we're looking at, and I'm going to start taking calls here in a moment. So if you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737+, 615-737-7587. These numbers that he threw out, $200 to $300 million of lost revenue from the sales tax. He said, I wrote down, I believe, the end of this fiscal year, so that's the end of June. How do we even finish this year's budget if we're going to lose that kind of revenue? What do we do?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think he's taken some steps that'll move in that direction, but I don't know if it's going to get that kind of money. So I will see if there's more things to be done. Now, there is one other caveat here that may help this a little bit, and he mentioned this. We don't know exactly how much money and for what Metro is going to get, first in part for the tornado relief, and secondly for what we're going to do in terms of the virus relief, the relief bill that Congress just passed and is on the way to sending checks to all of us, but also to sending checks to local government. I don't know how much that's going to be, and I don't know exactly how much, what it's going to mean and what it can be spent on. I believe I saw a figure that was $10 million for Metro, maybe more than that, but well, interesting. See, there's so many moving parts for this. It's almost worse than playing 3 or 4 dimensional chess to try to figure out all those different things at this point and do it all in real time. That's one of the problems you've got, just trying to figure out what the sales tax is going to be next year. And this is also true to some degree for the state budget, because the state budget was put together, almost every year it's put together obviously by estimates, but these are more like guesstimates than because when they put that together a week or 10 days ago before they left town, they were just trying to figure out what was going to happen. Now we're beginning to see what's going to happen, and the governor put his budget in at 0% growth. That's probably looks safe, but we may now go into negative growth in terms of revenues, and the legislature may have to deal with that when they come back. The one great advantage that the state has that Metro does not have is they have a pretty large rainy day fund. And they prepared it just for something like this, although I don't think anybody ever dreamed it would be something like this or something this serious. Metro doesn't have a rainy day fund like that. They've run it pretty close to the edge, maybe over the edge. Some people would say we've been way too generous in what they've been spending and not saving enough, not keeping enough. In fact, spending a lot of one-time money, and now it's caught up.
He said in the speech, Metro can't print money. This is what we have to do to get safely to the other side, and that this is a sharp increase in property taxes. Again, we don't know how much it will be. All right, we're going to take a break right now, then we'll come back and start taking calls. If you're on the line, hold on, we'll get to your call. Talk more with Pat Nolan about this remarkable speech. Be back right after this.